Yes, and now a total of 31 late-stage terror plots have been foiled in the UK in the past 4 years. That's according to the head of MI5, Director General Ken McCallum, revealed that there had been 6 during the pandemic alone. He said they were largely Islamic extremist plots, but a growing number were planned by far-right-wing terrorists as well. He also warned that the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban was likely to have emboldened UK terrorists.
Yes, well, let's talk now to John Gearson from the Centre of Defence Studies at King's College London. Thank you very much, John. How safe are we on our streets?
Well, I think Ken McCallum was suggesting that we might be a little less safe in the coming months, even years. But he was at pains to point out that the ability for people to carry out attacks isn't a tap you just turn on and off, and therefore I don't think there's been a manifest change just in the last 3 weeks with the fall of Kabul. But it is something that suggests we will be facing terrorist challenges for a long time.
Does this 31 figure, I mean, is that an indication that MI5 are doing a really good job, or does that actually seem like a low figure to you?
Well, I mean, if there's a more frightening figure, which is that more than 800 live investigations are currently being pursued by MI5 and counter-terrorism police. So they are actually looking at several thousand individuals of interest, 800 active investigations, and that's led to this disruption at the moment of 13 plots. That's up about, if you take us back to last October, around 15% up, but obviously these are quite low numbers, so that's a good thing. And the other very significant thing to remember is that these are late-stage, quite low-level attacks. You know, we haven't actually faced a sophisticated plot to carry out the sort of attack we saw in London on 7/7.
Just talk to me a bit about that, because that's a really, really good point, I think, that we haven't faced much of a sophisticated plot. Now, given the fact that we've pulled out of Afghanistan and left that in the hands of the Taliban and whoever else decides to fill that void, for example, are we now more likely to see a sophisticated plot? They've got wiggle room to do it now, haven't they?
Well, 20 years ago, when we first intervened in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda had been running training camps in Afghanistan for many years, and there was a sort of a terrorist university system operating in Afghanistan and neighbouring countries, frankly. Now, since then, we've had the almost fall of Iraq and Syria to Islamic State, who were defeated. But again, tens of thousands of foreign fighters trained, many of whom were not killed, and we don't actually know where they've gone. So in terms of the terrorist threat, it's still pretty big, but mostly threatens the countries from where these people are. In Britain, we don't believe that they have the capacity to carry out a sophisticated attack now. But yes, the worry must be that in time, if the Taliban represents a permissive environment for these terrorist groups and allows them to organise, to fundraise, to get involved in crime as they have in the past, and to train people, that's where I think the Western intelligence services will be very concerned about the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban. But as things stand, most of the public information we get suggests that those domestic terrorists we face don't have the organizational capacity or, frankly, the actual weapons to pose those higher level threats. But people like me saying that should always be careful, because there can always be another attack. And so I wouldn't dismiss the threat, but I think that threat is at the moment lower. But if we look a year or two down the line, if the worst scenarios play out, then we would be facing something different.
Very much, John Gearson there, Professor at Defence Studies at King's College London. Great to have your views on whether or not essentially we are more or less safe on our streets. Now,